Hi guys, so in today's video, we're gonna answer some of the questions that you guys commented and asked me on YouTube as well as social media such as TikTok and Instagram. But here's the twist. I'm going to spin the wheel and whenever the wheels landed on, I'm going to answer the question that I designated the question on. Without further ado, let's get into it. So we're gonna spin and what number is it landing? And number 9. Here we go. So here's the question number 9. This question is from Instagram, so we're gonna answer it. Hey, read this build. Ryzen 5 7600 with RTX 4060, 8 gigs, 32 gigs of DDR5, 5600 MHz, ADATA XPG Lancer, B650M MSI motherboard, 1TB Crucial, MSI MacForce 320R cabinet, Deepcool AK400 CPU fan, MSI 650 bronze PSU rated. This costs 110k rupees. This is actually a really balanced mid-range build, but nevertheless, let's break it down. It's a Ryzen 5 7600. That CPU is actually a very solid and modern CPU. That is an AM5 platform, so you can actually have an upgrade path with that. And next is the GPU, the RTX 4060 8 gigs. That is a very efficient, not very powerful for the price, but for 1080p gaming, that is a very good combo. But for 1440p long-term gaming, that 8 gigs of VRAM is a limitation right now at the moment. Now, for memory, 32 gigs of DDR5 5600, that is a very good one. You're covered for gaming and multitasking at the moment. For other parts, the B630M MSI board, that's a perfect mid-range motherboard and that is a extremely good board. So I think that you're gonna be fine with that. Next is the cooler, the AK400 cooler. That is a perfectly fine for your CPU. 1TB of SSD. Okay, so you might need to upgrade it if you don't have an HDD. But if you have a HDD, then I think that you're covered for that and that is good. What I think that needs to be addressed is that the RTX 4060 8 gigs, in that budget, I think that you could have upgraded a better GPU or a better value GPU rather than just buying new. You can buy used nowadays. Right now, the GPU market have been dialed down a little bit. I think that your next upgrade could be your GPU. And there are a lot of used GPU that is better than the RTX 4060. And next, the more important part is that your power supply. The 650 watt bronze PSU, that's a no bueno, my friend. If it works, it works. But it's not an amazing quality PSU. You could have gotten a better certification. The gold certification is going to be the norm. If not now, then sooner in the future. So I think that if you want a long-term PC, I think you need to upgrade your PSU. If you have the budget, of course. If you want to rate this, it's a good foundation, but the GPU is a little bit weak for that kind of budget. And I think that you could buy a better GPU. That is just my opinion, but I think that a lot of people might agree to me at this point. So overall, this build is pretty safe. It's a clean build, but if you want to optimize it, you could have gotten a better component for the budget. That build is not bad by any means, but it's not actually a fully min-max build. So, without that out of the way, let's go for the next question. And we're landing on the number 4. 4? 10. Okay, so it landed on number 10. Okay, so this question is also on Instagram and we're gonna go for it. I don't know how to spell your name, but I'm going to try anyway. Himinaisila. I'm so sorry that I mispronounced your name, but I'm going to answer your question now. I got a 3080 10 gigs with a Ryzen 7 5700X and 64 gigs of DDR4. Any recommendation on how to make the most of this before I switch to AM5 in the next couple of years? And if possible, what GPU to upgrade before then? Okay, that is a really good question, by the way. Thank you for asking that. So, this setup is way more stronger than most people give it credit for in 2026. So, if you want to switch to AM5 in a couple of years, I wouldn't rush anything. If I want to make the most of this system first, make sure that your RAM runs on XMP or Expo, turn on rebar if your motherboard support it, and use DLSS when it makes sense. If your GPU couldn't handle native resolution, then you can enable DLSS. There's nothing wrong with that. Just enable it at balance or performance. That would give you the best performance of your GPU. The 3080 tend to run kind of hot nowadays, so if your case has a good airflow, then I would utilize that as well. And to be honest, because the 5700X paired with the 3080 are a very good pair to run 1440p gaming still. So I suggest that you utilize that as well. And it's also decent on 4K, but I wouldn't push it because 4K is a niche nowadays. It's not like a recommendation. You're gonna do just fine on 1440p at this moment. So this is where I'll be careful. I would not buy another mid-range GPU. Your 3080 is already too good for such a tiny upgrade, and I would wait until you make a meaningful jump. So I'm going to quote something from a YouTuber that I used to watch, is that if you want to upgrade, upgrade. And if you want to upgrade in a couple of years, you need to think about what upgrade is going to be meaningful. The upgrade is not supposed to be like, oh, that is nice. I can feel the tiny difference, but it's not so much. It's more like, wow, I can feel the day and night different. Otherwise, you spend money and end up benchmarking more than gaming. And also, 64 gigs of DDR4. Keep enjoying it because in AM5, you're gonna upgrade it to DDR5. If I were you, I would enjoy that build as much as possible and use those kind of settings that I just told you about. You can enjoy all those things as much as you can. And then when you jump to a new platform, you can actually feels like, oh, I feel the difference. So overall, your current PC has a lot of life left in it, and I would squeeze as much of everything I can on that build as possible if I were you. And then when you upgrade, jump to AM5 and GPU at the same time all together later, and you will feel the real upgrade. Okay, the next question. Here we go. And number 7. The number 7 is also an Instagram question. So TLDR R95, thank you for asking the question. And here's your question. Can I get an advice from an expert like you on this situation? I'm not an expert, but I will answer this question as best as my ability. I'm looking for the best NVIDIA GPU for 4K gaming, but for 800 euros or under. Secondhand, I was thinking of 5070 Ti, but still not sure. Okay, that is a very interesting question. Thank you for asking. So you're shopping a very specific lane, my friend, and it's not going to be easy. So first, I'm gonna be real with you, my friend. Because of the current market, the price have gone all over the place, and most of the GPU right now, they're over 800 euro. So the 5070 Ti, if you can actually find it used under 800 euro, you should grab it because that GPU is actually a very strong 4K performance GPU, and it has newer features, better efficiency, and also realistically, most listing of that 5070 Ti is hovering between 850 to 950 euro. But if you can find it under 800, that's a steal, my friend. So you should grab it. Also, if you want a second opinion, here's another suggestion. Go for the used 4080. This because of the weird market shift. You can find the 4080 between 700 to 800 range secondhand. And for 4K raw performance, the 4080 still going very strong. And if you can actually be patient and look for it properly, you can find it between 700 to 800 euro, and that is a steal to me. So here's what I think you should look at. The reality is that even the newer card like 5070 series is actually designed rely to DLSS or upscaling technology. It's not really a raw performance GPU, and to really push it to 4K gaming performance, I wouldn't expect a native 4K. I would expect more like DLSS 4 or even 4.5 to push it to 60 and 100 FPS. I'm going to give you a reality check here. To be frank, on that budget, I wouldn't expect any GPU can actually play native 4K on 60 FPS. So that will probably the best value pick for me on your budget. So bottom line, if your budget is strict, go for the used 4080. If not, if you can actually find a 5070 Ti under or 800 euro, then you should instantly buy it because you wouldn't find a deal like that every single day. Even a 5070 Ti, they will struggle to help you get to the native 4K at 60 FPS. So you will still need to use DLSS on modern game nowadays because right now 4K is just a nice to have, but the sweet spot at gaming nowadays are 1440p. Don't chase the newest GPU, just maximize your budget and you'll be just fine. Now that we're done with this question, let's get to the next question. And we got number 8. Here we go. So this question this time is on YouTube, and Nathan Hart, T1G. Why do people want raw power when DLSS and frame gen gets more FPS and also looks better? I choose the 5060 personally. Nathan, thank you for asking. And to answer your question, I get why you picked the 5060. DLSS and frame gen are really good now, and they will get better in the future. But here's the thing that some people might miss. DLSS and frame gen don't replace raw power. They depend on it. So what is DLSS? DLSS is you upscales from lower resolution to a bigger size resolution image. Yes, you get more FPS, but it's based on performance, and performance still matters in this situation. And what about frame gen? It adds frame, but those frame aren't real, and it adds a little bit of latency too. Now tie that back to what I said on my previous video, is that for competitive 1440p games, you care about stable FPS, better 1% low latency. So this is where previous video I said that 3080 Ti wins because it has more raw power, and more raw power, it produces higher native FPS, better latency, and more consistent frame time. Now, to be fair, if you're playing single player games or you care about new features and efficiency, then yes, your 5060 choice is much more sense in that matter. But at the end of the day, DLSS and frame gen are tools to boost performance, and raw power is the foundation of the GPU. So it's not about one GPU beats the other. It's more like, what do you want in your game? For competitive games or esport, raw power still wins in this comparison. But for casual games or modern games or single player games, newer cards like 5060 are great in that category. So the difference is that, what do you want in your game? So that answered that question. We're moving to the next question. Okay, here we go. Here is number 4. Okay, here's the question number 4. Question from Ibrabot. Can you make a video on the best PC for 1000 USD for competitive gaming at 1080p low setting esports games? But here's the thing. I did talk to you about this, and you asked me what kind of PC build for 1,500 USD. I don't remember where I got that comment. So I'm going to build $1,500 build because you did ask me that on some of my latest video, but I couldn't find that comment anywhere. So here we go. For $1,500 and the goal is esport or competitive gaming at 1080p, low settings. To be honest with you, $1,500 can actually get you at medium settings. If you want more FPS, then you can lower it down to low settings. It's also fine too, comparing to 1,000 USD. So in my opinion, I would get a 7800X 3D. Due to the 3D V-Cache, this CPU is ridiculously good for esport titles, and because it push high frame rate and high frame time, and it will keep your game very smooth. Now, for the GPU, I wouldn't go crazy on the GPU. Something around 5070 class would be just fine. Enough GPU to make it not becoming a problem in games, but not as much that half of your budget sit unused. So I would go for the 5070 or 5070 Ti if you can find it under about 900 to 800 USD. Now it comes to term with RAM. I would go for the 32 gigs of DDR5, not because esport needs a lot of RAM. It is for your day-to-day tasks will be smoother, like using Discord, browser tab, recording, streaming, and background apps, all running together in the background. Any RAM speed is fine, as long as it's 32 gig. Now, next is an SSD. Any SSD 1TB is fine. You can use it as a boot drive. I assume that you already had an HDD, so I'm not going to advise you to get it. But if you have a good SSD for a boot drive, then you're fine. After that, you can get a decent motherboard and reliable power supply, then you'll be golden. And your monitor matters too, assuming that you haven't bought it. If you're building a competitive gaming build, but still on a 60Hz monitor, then your entire build became meaningless. So I suggest that you get a good monitor. Monitors nowadays, they became cheap enough for you to get a 144 Hz monitor. So I'd rather spending less of my money on GPU and put some of those budget into a good monitor like 120 or 144 Hz monitor. So anyway, I already given you enough information that you can use it as a base to build you the best bang for your buck PC. And I hope that you succeed building your $1,500 PC. And I would love to hear from you, my friend. So good luck. So I hope that answers your question, and I will move on to my next question. Let's get into it. And number one. So the question number one is question from Travel Vlog with Dubai. Rate my PC build. My name is Sorik. Hello Sorik, and thank you for asking me the question. Now, the CPU is the Intel Core i7 14700F. The CPU cooler is the Deepcool LS520 240mm AIO. The motherboard is the MSI Mag B760M motor Wi-Fi DDR5. The RAM is a Corsair Vengeance 32GB of DDR5 6000. The GPU is the RTX 570 12GB. The SSD is a WD Black SN 770 2TB NVMe Gen 4. And the PSU is the Cooler Master MWE 850 watts 80 plus gold. The PC case is the MSI MagForge 130A Airflow Black. Wow! This build is an amazing build. Starting off with the CPU and GPU, the 14700F and the 5070 is a very strong combo, and I really respect that. The CPU is enough if you ever edit videos, streaming, and multitasking. For gaming, in 1080p, it's going to be very easy. You can max out everything. it's gonna be totally fine. For 1440p, it's going to be the sweet spot. For 4K, it's definitely possible, but I think that it would depends on the settings and the DLSS, like DLSS performance or balance. Now, the rest of your parts, the AIO, the deep cool AIO is definitely makes sense for the 14700F because 14 gen Intel tend to run extremely hot under load. The MSI motherboard, the B760 motor, that is one of the very good series motherboard. So I think that you covered there. And next is the RAM, the 32 gigs of DDR5 6000 megahertz transfer per second. That is a very good sweet spot in 2026 and maybe forward. And I think that you're gonna be good for a couple of years. Next is an SSD. The WD Black SSD is a very good SSD. I think that it's gonna be good for the next 5 to 6 years if you know how to maintain them. That SSD will help you store a lot of movie, if you know what I mean. Next is the power supply, the 850 watts gold PSU. That's also good. That's going to have you enough headroom to upgrade your GPU if you want it. If I have one question is that what monitor are you using this with? Because I think that it deserves more than 1080p and 60 Hz monitor. With overall rating, I think that I would rate this 2 thumbs up, and that build is a very balanced, very strong build and little to no bottleneck whatsoever. But so enjoy the build, Zorik. You deserve it. I think that this build will last you a very, very long time. I missed a few numbers, so I already added back in. So let's continue with our question. Number 15. Let's go. The next question is actually on YouTube and it's from Vortigon. I did make my own build around 1500 USD in the November 2025. And I'm wondering what I should upgrade next year when the new GPU and CPUs drop. Here's the build. The PSU is the Be Quiet 750 watts gold. The CPU is the Ryzen 5 9600X. Overclocked and undervolted, the GPU is the RX 9600 XT Nitro 16GB. The motherboard is the ASRock B650 Live Mixer. The RAM is the 32GB Kingston Fury Cast 32 with Expo enabled at 5600 megahertz. The CPU cooler is the Thermalright Phantom Spirit 120 SE. The SSDs are two separate Samsung SSD 990 EVO plus 2TB and the WD Green SN3000 1TB, a total of 5TB storage. The HDD is the 8TB W Dread Plus and an old Seagate 500GB. The fans are two Noctua 140 at the front and two 140 at the top and two 120 at the bottom of the Lian Li 208 case. The peak power consumption at 406 watt for the whole PC when stress testing and 318 watts at average when playing games and 75 watts when idles or watching movies. The monitor is the 27-inch MSI Mac. Now that is a very interesting build. You built this in November of 2025 and only at $1,500. I probably wouldn't upgrade next year. Seriously. Looking through this build, the Ryzen 5 9600X undervolted and overclocked, the RX 9060 XT Nitro 16GB, the B650 board, 32 gigs of DDR5, really good cooler, a lot of storage, a good airflow. Your monitor is already 1440p. This doesn't look like a PC that is reaching its limit. Your power consumption number is amazing. Around 400 under test and around 300 during gaming. That's efficient. That's very good. Why do you need to upgrade for? Before buying anything, I have one question. What problem are you trying to solve? Like more FPS, 4K, streaming? Because right now, your monitor is probably deciding the experience more than the hardware. And If your goal is competitive gaming, I probably wouldn't touch the GPU. If your goal is AAA games at 1440p, I also wouldn't touch your GPU. And for the CPU, you're already on AM5. That's a nice CPU. You don't need to rebuild. You can just wait until there's a CPU that has a meaningful speed. If the next year's CPU launch and one of them has a very meaningful CPU speed boost, then maybe. But in my opinion, don't upgrade because there's something new exists. Your current build is probably pretty optimized. If I had to predict your next first real upgrade path, it's probably the monitor first and then your GPU later. It's not because the GPU is weak, because 1440p is already a really sweet spot, and moving display experience up can sometimes feel better and bigger rather than chasing the next 15 FPS. Overall, I rate this build as one of those builds I spend the next 3 to 4 years without batting an eye about upgrading. Okay, I hope that answered your question. So let's jump to the next question. Here we go. Number 16. Okay, the next question is also from YouTube, and this is from Tima2540, Ryzen 7 7800X3D, 5070, and 32 gigs of DDR5. So I'm going to answer this question like you want to know if this build is good. This build is a really strong gaming setup. The 7800X3D is still one of the best gaming CPU in the world because of the extra cache, especially games that love CPU performance like Valorant, Fortnite, Warzone, MMO, simulation games. Pairing with a 5070, that's actually a very balanced combo. You have enough CPU power that can actually catch up with your GPU without overkilling it. At 1080p games, you expect a very high FPS. At 1440p, to be honest, that is probably a very sweet spot for that build. For 4K, it's still also possible, but those games are going to depend on settings or DLSS and depends on what frame rate are you aiming at. As for the 32 gigs of DDR5, in 2026, that's probably the stopping point for most gamers. So overall for this combo, for competitive game, you have no problem playing at very high FPS at AAA single player games. I think that you're not going to have a problem with them as long as you stay realistic with the settings. I think this is one of those builds where you will not feel the unbalance of the build. I hope that answered your question, my friend. Before we jump to the next question, I have something to say. By the way guys, thank you so much for staying up until this point of the video. If you like my content, please drop a like, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell. It's only take a few moments, but it's genuinely helped my channel grow, and it also helps me to create more content like PC build, component comparison, tech topic, and more importantly, helps you to build your dream PC build. I hope that you learned a lot of useful information with me and also had a lot of fun. If you want to hang out and ask me a lot of questions about tech topic and PC build, please join my stream. The link is down in the description below. And without further interruption, let's get back to the video. Let's go for the next question. And number 2. Now, let's get to the final question. So the next question is going to be on TikTok. And Zap, thank you for asking the question. The question is, what GPU would you pair for the Ryzen 5 5600 for AAA like Warzone? Honestly, for GPU pairing, I would split it by resolution. For 1080p high settings, I would go something around RTX 5060 or the RX 9060 XT because they don't demand as much as 1440p. Something around RTX 5060 to 9060 XT makes sense in this situation. Now, for 1440p, this is where it gets interesting. This is where I start looking at RTX 5070 or similar performance like 9070 XT, because once you move to a high resolution, the GPU is starting doing more of the work. And specifically for Warzone, I wouldn't go too crazy. Warzone is more like an esports game, not a AAA titles. So Warzone is likely to use CPU more than you expected. So pairing the Ryzen 5 5600 with a very high-end GPU isn't always the best use for your money. I'd rather build balance, enough GPU to push visual and FPS, but not so much that you're waiting for your CPU to catch up. And one thing that some people forget, that make sure that your RAM is actually decent. Dual channel will actually go a very long way, and also XMP enabled. That stuff matters more than you can think in games like Warzone. So the quick answer that I have to give you a choice, then if you're playing the game at 1080p high settings, then I suggest you to get either RTX 5060 or the RX 9060 XT. But if you're playing the game at 1440p, then I suggest you to get the 5070 or something equivalent to that. If I were you, I probably wouldn't go higher than that unless you already know why you need it. So that's all the question I can answer in this video. I hope that you learned something useful and had as much fun as I have. Thank you so much until the end of the video. That means a lot to me. I hope that you guys found the answer that you guys were looking for. I'll see you guys in the next video. And as always, stay geeky, my friends. Bye!